Bonus pod. Love a good bonus pod.
I love a good bonus pod.
I do too. And we know the Eagles' opponent. That's why we're doing this. This is the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan.
It should be a separate phrase because, like, to me, a bonus pod is a pod that's not planned. It's just like there's big news. Oh, we better do a pod. We kind of knew we were doing a pod because there was going to be an opponent. So
that's an emergency podcast you're talking about. This is a bonus because it's an extra.
Bonus pod, emergency pod. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. All right. Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We know the opponent. 49ers are coming to town. The number 2 seed in the NFC. It felt like this was kind of the collision course for really a couple months here, and it's the matchup we end up getting after just a barn burner of a football game we just watched, the 49ers and Cowboys. It was
a tremendous defensive battle. Yards, first downs, scores were hard to come by. It was a fun game to watch. Definitely.
It set situational football back decades.
Yeah, there's no question about that. But I think you had some really good defensive play, and it was going to come down to who made the fewest mistakes, and that was the Niners. I think both quarterbacks could have had about 3 picks, but it was that last play. Somebody just texted me and was like, "What exactly were the Cowboys thinking on that last play? Your only hope, you can't throw it. Dak can't throw it 80 yards. I don't know if anybody can throw it 80 yards. So you got to try to do a little Cal Stanford deal. And the Niners are so quick defensively, they never got to the first lateral. So
they spent a year thinking of that play. I mean, that's what makes it so funny. It's like, how on what planet is that going to work?
Yeah, that was the best part.
Zeke get bulldozed on his way to the quarterback. Just so funny. Just the funniest way for their season to end.
Yeah. It's continues a quarter century of disappointment for the Cowboys. I know
the Cowboys should fire Mike McCarthy.
They should. They're
not going to, I don't think, but they should.
Yeah. It's weird how, like, when the Cowboys are winning, they show Jerry every other play celebrating his press box. I don't think they showed him once tonight. I didn't see him.
Yeah.
It's just
brutal. That came up small again too.
Yeah. It didn't help when, Pollard. I mean, they don't run the ball real well with Zeke anymore. Zeke was 10 for 26. They really missed Pollard, but they weren't going to win the game. 2 more picks for Dak. Unbelievable.
I mean, they were right in that thing. You're starting to think, man, if they win this game, they probably don't have Pollard next week. All of a sudden, it's not an easy game for the Eagles, but it's much easier.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. And I just kept thinking anyone who doesn't want the Cowboys, not because it's like, hey, we got to play our rivals, but they're the easier team to beat. They're the easiest path to the Super Bowl. But they just weren't good enough to beat the Niners, making those mistakes. They have a talented team. There's no doubt about it. But and just stuff like, the tight end, just, candy-assing that play at the end. And can I say that? And
he made 2 mistakes. I mean, he didn't go forward and he got thrown out of bounds, so the clock ran.
Right.
And he get his feet down. So if he gets his feet down there, at least you have a shot at the end zone.
Yeah, exactly. And and Mitchell made a gaffe of his own there. Cost them some time by not doing the Brian Westbrook deal, taking a knee.
You're right. The Cowboys shouldn't even have the ball back at all.
That's right. So
they should not have punted.
There's so many things. He's a bad coach with a talented team. That's going to be if they do, and I don't think they will, but that would be a really prime job for a candidate, because you're coming into a situation where the roster's loaded and they just need to get over that hump that they haven't gotten over in a quarter of a century.
I watched that game, and you think about Nick Sirianni, and you know how he always says a game's going on. They're probably in the office now, but they're watching a college game, and he'll text some of the other coaches hey, did you see this situation? I mean, his thumbs would have hurt after watching that game with all the situations that got screwed up. But for the most part, I think Nick's done a really good job in his 2 years in those situations. And I think a big part of it is that he's not calling the plays, and
Yeah,
it frees him up so much.
there's no question.
And Shanahan
yeah,
is a pretty good play caller, but
right.
man, some of his situational stuff and his like cowardly decisions make no sense to me.
I wonder if we're going to see more offensive head coaches, hand over play calling. I think we might.
I don't think so.
No,
there's too much ego in the NFL.
Maybe you're right. I tell you what, I mean, we don't know exactly what week Shane started calling the plays. We know kind of about when it was, and it was right when they started winning last year, right when they went on that run. They're clearly a more prepared team, a better team, a more fan. I mean, he's a better play caller. I mean, he just is. Nick was not calling plays very well. I think I even remember writing that he should turn it over to Shane like around week 4. It just wasn't going well. But I mean, their record with Shane is outrageous as a play caller. Yeah, I think it's huge for this team. And Nick has an ego, but I think he's so team first that he'll suppress it to do the right thing.
Yeah. Watching the 49ers Cowboys, I couldn't help but think like this is there for the Eagles. Neither of these teams are juggernauts, and there are good individual players. And now obviously you worry about the 49ers, and there's Fred Warner's great, and Nick Bosa's obviously tremendous. Like they have good players. Kittle's great. Debo is great. But overall, I mean, I don't think this is like any kind of juggernaut team. I know they've won 12 straight. I know they've won 7 in a row with Brock Purdy, but it's not like they're unbeatable.
Yeah, and I was thinking that watching the game, they're very, very good. But and Greenlaw, I just think he's so good. I love watching that guy play. And they have weapons. Purdy was pretty good today, but he wasn't great. That was unintentional. I think he makes some great plays, but yeah, he's beatable. I mean, he's coming into an atmosphere unlike anything he's ever experienced, and and he's going to be facing a really good defense that pressures him like he's never seen before. I like the matchup. That's what I was thinking. Like I think, I don't see the Niners too much because we're at games, so we don't really get to watch a ton of Niners. But you have this image of this unbeatable team, this like dynasty, and then you see them and they're really good, but they're beatable.
They're definitely beatable. And look, I know that they can only play who's on their schedule, and we went through this with the Eagles this year. People looking at the schedule and saying, well, who did they beat? But I think it is fair in this 12-game stretch that the Niners have won all these games. I mean, some okay teams, a few playoff teams in there, the Bucs and Seahawks. So the 2 worst playoff teams in the NFC they beat. They did beat the Chargers, but, I mean, they were clearly very beatable. Some of these games are like –
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think the 12 – it's impressive to win 12 games in a row, no doubt about it. But they haven't played a team as good as the Eagles yet.
Right, and I'm not sure there are any as good as the Eagles. The Eagles are 8-1 this year against winning teams. That whole narrative is the best record by any team against winning teams in a season since 2007. The Patriots were 9-1 against winning teams in 2007, and they're undefeated at home against winning teams. Obviously, their 2 losses were Washington and the Saints, but the 2 home losses. But yeah, I don't see an unbeatable team there, and the Eagles are healthy. They didn't have a week off before the NFC Championship game, but the week off they had, I mean, the Niners will be playing for the 3rd week in a row, or the whatever week in a row. I think the bye still has value as you go through. I love that the game is here. Can't wait.
Yeah, Eagles open as 2-point favorites per points bet, a little lower than I thought. Some places even had them opening up at 1.5. So I think that's going to rise a little bit. I think they're going to be – I think that'll probably get up to like 3.5.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll continue to rise. Honestly, 3.5 is kind of what I thought. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week. Like if it's Eagles, Niners, what do you think it'll be? And I said 3.5. So I was pretty surprised to see it open at some places at 1.5, open at PointsBet at 2. I think it could get up to 3, 3.5.
That's interesting. We'll see what the trends are. I kept thinking the Eagles Giants was going to come down. It did briefly, I think, but then went back up.
It went up. It was all the way up to 8 before the game.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see if my bookie has anything posted yet. I don't really have a bookie. I wouldn't even know where to find a bookie. No odds available. Yeah, it's. I'm sure all the national pundits will pick the Niners, just like they picked the Giants, and they'll be wrong.
Pick the Giants.
I don't know. I just like saying that.
I feel this is what like NFL teams do.
I know.
It's like, after Georgia wins their second straight national title, you got kids on the field saying no one believed in us. What are you talking about? No one believed in you.
Giving up 11 points all year. I think Hassan Reddick did a little of that yesterday. He was like, "Oh, the Giants were talking trash all week."
Well, the Eagles, yeah, there was definitely a lot of that. And the Eagles tried to use it. Apparently, I don't know who said it, but the Giants apparently said they wanted to face the Eagles again. Even Jalen Hurts finished his press conference by saying, "Be careful what you wish for." Like the Giants just, they played who they had to play. They advanced in the playoffs. It wasn't like they put them on their schedule.
Yeah, that stuff cracks me up. I mean, some coaches are great at it. They say we suck. They say we're the worst. They want to play us. They want to come. We got something for them. Like everyone's fired up. It's like
always play up the disrespect angle.
Never happened.
You can find it in this though. If you say we're home, we've been incredible with our starting quarterback who's healthy. We're healthy in these playoffs. We're 2-point favorites against a team with the last pick in the draft starting at quarterback.
The thing is, Vegas odds have nothing to do with respect. They've nothing. The odds makers, they had to do with balancing the bets, and so it's a matter of who the.
Yeah, I know that.
It has nothing to do with respect.
None of this does.
No, of course not.
But you try to use anything you can to get an advantage and to fire up your team.
I'm sure Nick will do the same thing.
Yeah,
but makes it fun. Gives us something right.
I'm curious to see if that line moves a little bit. I kind of think it will.
Yeah, we'll see. It'd be fun to watch.
Yeah. It's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet, your move. All right, we'll really obviously break down this Eagles-49ers matchup a ton during the week before Sunday at 3 p.m. But initial read on it. What do you think of this matchup?
Yeah, it's a fun matchup, and you're talking about the top 2 defenses in the league. You're talking about the only 2 teams in the NFL that are top 5 in offense and defense. Mm-hmm. And I think the Eagles were 2 in defense and 3 in offense. The Niners were 1 in defense, 15 yards ahead of the Eagles, and 5 in offense. So they're both very balanced teams. They're teams that have star power on both sides of the ball. They're teams that have an elite pass rusher. They're teams that have playmakers in the secondary. They both run the ball well. They both have a really good receivers. I mean, they're both very complete teams. If I'm looking for an edge, it's Jalen Hurts versus Brock Purdy. And, Brock Purdy's played well since he came in, but Jalen Hurts is better. He's just better. And I don't know if there's a defense out there that can really slow him down the way he's playing. He plays this game differently than any other quarterback. And I mean, the Niners don't give up a lot of points. I believe it's like 12 of their 17 games. Right now, 19 games, 14 out of 19 games, they've allowed 17 or fewer points. And a bunch of them are like 12 or fewer points. They just don't give up many points. They didn't, they gave up 12 today. I think, what was the final score? I don't remember, but
it was 19-12.
19-12. Good year for wars. But I just like that matchup. All things being equal, Jalen breaks the tie for me. He's just that good, and
that's fair.
He's healthier. He was healthier Saturday night than he was last time we saw him, and he'll be healthier Sunday. Eagles have an extra day. They don't have to travel. They're going to be home. I mean, there's just so many built-in edges there. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a tough game, physical game. But I just like the difference maker is number one for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And Brock Purdy has done his job, but it's not like the offense has been better with him. I'll give him credit for that. But I've watched him a little bit. There are some plays where he gets lucky too. And like everyone gets that, but I feel like the crash landing is gonna happen at some point.
Remember in 2013 when Nick had that incredible year, and not to take anything away from him. I mean, he really played great that year, but I mean, he must have had, what do you have, 27 and 2, 27, yeah. And then 2 more touchdowns in the playoff game. But they must have dropped like 9 interceptions on him that year. There was a bunch. And I get that vibe with Purdy. And you saw it tonight. I mean, the Cowboys had 3 of them in their hands. Yeah. They just didn't.
How often does Trayvon Diggs drop a pick?
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't happen. That's the only reason he's out there, just to get him. He ain't tackling anybody. Yeah, so look, these are both kind of playoff savvy teams. The Niners are in the playoffs. You know, I mean, they were in a Super Bowl not that long ago. I think we talked not too long about the only other time the Eagles and Niners played in the postseason was '96, Ray Rhodes' second year, and the Eagles had a wild card game out Candlestick. It was a rainy day, cold, rainy day in Northern California, and Ty Detmer threw 2 interceptions in the red zone. He won at the 4-yard line, one at the 6-yard line. And then he got benched. Ray Rhodes benched him for Mark Reuben, who was a former Super Bowl MVP, but he was like 50 at that point. And he threw another interception, and the Niners won 14-0. It's the only time the Eagles have been shut out in the postseason in their history. So they've never scored a postseason point against the 49ers. And I
predict that will change on Sunday.
Steve Young, that was Steve Young throwing to Jerry Rice. So this is not exactly the same. And Ricky Waters had a terrible game. He averaged like 2.5 yards a carry. And I think I told this story how Steve Young came in the Eagles locker room after the game, and he and Ricky were very close. And he came in, he still had his jersey on, and he and Ricky had a big hug, and Ricky said to him, "Man, Steve, you had more rushing yards than I did." And he did. He outrushed him like 65 to 57 or something like that. Sticks in my mind. But it was about as bad a playoff game as you could imagine. And the Eagles didn't get back. It's the only time in the last 30 years they went 3 years in a row without making the playoffs. They didn't get back till 2000 under Andy. But I think this one will go a little better. I think they'll score this time.
Yeah, I like their chances to put points on the board. I do think about the Niners, and it's a better test than we've seen, certainly from the Giants and a lot of the teams the Eagles have played this year. Linebacker play is really good, so like that's the first thing that sticks out with me is like how effective
they're so fast.
They're fast. It's like how effective will the read option stuff be?
Yeah.
Against them? I don't know the answer to that. I think having Jalen still changes the numbers, but when you have the type of speed they have, it's fair to wonder that. But I think they can score points. I do. I really do. And defensively, the Niners have some weapons, but we're going to hear about eye candy all week because of that offense and what Shanahan does. But
I know who's going to ask that question.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of that this week. But, you know, I feel pretty good about the Eagles, especially, and I feel better about it after watching this game tonight. And maybe that's too much recency bias to watch one game and then feel better about it because they still did what they needed to do to win it. But that's kind of the feeling I get leaving that one.
For me, it's not really recency bias as much as I think when you see them up close and really have a chance to watch and pay attention, you kind of just see it takes some of the, I don't know, that this team's unbeatable mythos away from them. Just seeing that they're just a team like any other team, and they're really good, but they're not unbeatable by a long shot. I mean, they have weapons. I don't think the Eagles have faced a team with, you're looking at McCaffrey, who had like 1,300 yards in 12 games since coming over from Carolina. Obviously, Kittle, but he had a great game tonight. Debo didn't put up huge numbers this year, but he's versatile and he's dangerous. And Ayuk, I believe, went over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he's been very good.
Yeah, so they got a lot of weapons.
And even like the change of pace, Elijah Mitchell's been a pretty good back for them.
Yeah, yeah. A little blunder there at the end of the game, but yeah, he's talented. They're really good. Eagles are really good, and
pretty good tackle play. If maybe the best offensive lineman in the league at left tackle and McGlinchey at right.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, talking about Trent Williams, and I mean their whole O line is pretty good, pretty solid. They don't really have a weakness, and I don't think the Eagles really do either. I don't know. I don't know if I could come up with a weakness on the Eagles.
Yeah, maybe during a week we'll kind of go position by position and try to figure out which roster has more talent. I think it's the Eagles.
I think it's close, but I agree. Yeah,
Ty goes to the quarterback.
Yeah, well, Ty was the problem in the first game. He was the quarterback. It's the Nissan Thrill of the Drive event, so gift yourself what you really want this holiday season and shop your local Nissan store or visit nissanusa.com today. Just like the holidays, these offers won't last.
Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. Download the new Season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Reuben, AFC, real quick. I'm sure you watched the Bengals-Bills game. Man, that got ugly in a hurry.
Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, I'm good friends, not only good friends, but I'm friends with Sean McDermott. I've known him a long time, and it's hard to say this, but I think it's been kind of a disappointing stretch for them.
Oh, yeah.
When you think about it, I mean, every year they win 11, 12, 13 games, and they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl, since 2019. I mean, they lost in a wild card round. They lost the AFC Championship game, and then 2 straight years they've lost in the conference semifinal round after winning 12 and then 13 games, I believe. So they've really underachieved.
And their quarterback is underachieved.
He really has, and I'm going to move Burrow ahead of him.
Can we do that now? Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still have Trevor Lawrence. And Clay Harbor, I was right about Trevor Lawrence. Clay Harbor comes up and he's like, man, Trevor Lawrence just threw a pick and cost the Jaguars a chance. I think maybe you were right. So Clay got you.
Yeah. But Joe Burrow might be the second best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
It was fun watching that game because one quarterback is like spiraling and he's trying to do too much and he's getting flustered. He's throwing his hissy fits on the field. And the other one, ice water.
Yeah.
Matters.
That's the difference between those two. I think that's apparent. And I think they're both.
And Jalen has that in him too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to get to that. I mean, I think that's a real, and we saw that last night, Saturday night. I mean, he was just nothing phases him. Nothing bothers him. I mean, he's got the exact same demeanor the first day of OTAs as the playoffs. Mm-hmm. If you were just focusing on him, you couldn't tell the difference. He just was doing his job. I don't know but yeah, I mean, the Bills have been disappointing. Josh Allen's been disappointing. Where would you rank? How would you rank the quarterbacks? Who'd you put third if those two are first and second? Might be Jalen.
Oh, in a whole league?
Oh, you could go there. Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking of the guys we ranked the other day, but yeah, in the whole league. I mean, if Mahomes is 1 and Burrow's 2.
You mean of those 8? I would move Jalen above Josh Allen, and that when we talked about it last week, that was what I was alluding to when I said I wanted to have Jalen higher. I should have just done it.
It's fair, yeah. And that I felt like that game was really set up for the Bills. It was Bills weather, it was snowing, crowd. That's a nice win. Zach Taylor's a good coach.
They're good on the road.
Yeah, they really are.
Good on the road.
Yeah, they are. They're impressive. They're very
We'll see if they have one more in them. That's going to be a fun game next week.
I think the Bengals are going to win that game.
It's a game we won't be able to watch because we'll be we'll be working.
I know. That was killing me. I was thinking that tonight watching the Cowboys Niners game. I'm thinking this might be the last game I get to watch this year.
Although I am curious to see if the Eagles win on Sunday, if the game is on in the locker room when I get in there.
Interesting. Probably would be. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's kind of a unique situation.
I just think the Bengals. I mean, obviously the Chiefs' offense is tremendous, but I don't know how healthy Mahomes is. I still don't trust that defense a whole lot.
Yeah,
and I think the Bengals might be able to put up 30 on them.
Yeah. All right, we got time for just a couple quick Eagles thoughts that we can go into the week with. What's on your mind, Eagles wise?
Just what a good situation they're in. Everyone's healthy. I mean, Lane seemed to get through that game. He didn't talk, but played really well.
Pro Football Focus charted him with 26 snaps in pass protection, 0 pressures.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And it'll be a bigger test for him this coming week, obviously, especially with Nick Bosa. And they move Bosa from side to side. So I'm sure they'll try to test Lane pretty early. But either way, Bosa's a test for Mailata too. But impressive game from Lane. Yeah.
I actually thought Jordan had one of his better games. I haven't had a chance to look at Pro Football Focus yet. But, yeah, I thought the whole O-line did. But I don't know how many teams are as healthy. And obviously there's guys banged up. But I don't know how many teams are as healthy in week 21, whatever it is. Really, and Landon Dickerson said, you got to count those preseason weeks because it's not like we're resting. I mean, they had to bye after the last preseason game. But it was really like week 27 or whatever. And they're in great shape. I mean, they're healthy. There's really no reason they shouldn't win this game unless the Niners play out of their mind and the Eagles make mistakes. I think it's be very close. I think it's a 3-point game one way or the other.
If it comes down to that, then the whole quarterback thing matters. And if Jalen has the ball in his hands with a chance to win the game, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
If I'm the Eagles, right? And I think they would feel good about it. I think the whole stadium would feel pretty good about it. And I know Jalen wouldn't care. So I think they have that going for him.
Yeah. It's such a weapon, just his calmness. It definitely has a domino effect on the whole team. They look at the huddle and you're down 3 with 2.5 minutes left on your own 25-yard line, and the quarterback's cool as proverbial cucumber. Then everybody's going to be that way, and it lets you perform at your peak efficiency because you're not stressing about the situation or worried, or you just go out and play. And he really inspires that in guys.
Yeah,
it's rare.
And as long as the Eagles have their offensive line and their defensive line, I feel pretty good about them in almost any matchup.
Yeah. I wrote about that in my bonus observations. I did 10 bonus observations from off the cutting room floor from last night. And one of them was just on the lasting impact Andy Reid made on this franchise, starting with the emphasis on the lines, that how he kind of adopted from Andy and has continued ever since. And I wonder how many teams have had a D line and an O line this good at the same time. It's and it's a little scary what they're going to look like next year, because there's a lot of, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but they're both going to look different, obviously. But there'll be plenty of time this spring to worry about that. But it's going to be great. Look, the link's going to be nuts. This will be the third 03. This will be the third NFC Championship game at the link. Amazing. The Eagles have been in 7 NFC Championship games since 2001. And this will be the first one I'm not actually at the game, although I'll be at the stadium.
Yeah, I can't wait to experience that atmosphere again.
Yeah.
I still think about what it was like on the field before the last NFC Championship game at the link. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. So I am looking forward to Sunday already.
It's amazing. I mean, they're one win at home from the Super Bowl, Dave.
Yeah.
From a second Super Bowl in 6 seasons. That's really incredible, with a different coach, a different quarterback, and really essentially a different roster, minus 5 or 6 guys. That's incredible. That doesn't happen. The teams that have had like dynasty stretches. I mean, the Patriots, it was one quarterback. The Niners did with Joe and Steve Young, so they had a couple and a couple coaches, Walsh and Mariucci. The Steelers had Chuck Nolan, Bradshaw. They won 4 of them in 6 years. You look at the teams that have had that kind of success. It's been with that same nucleus, and most of them were before free agency. So to get to 2, and we'll see what happens if they do. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is the freaking glory days for this franchise.
Yeah, it really is. All right. If you enjoyed the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll be back with you for the normal schedule during the week. This was just a bonus pod. For Rube, I'm David.
Not an emergency pod.
Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.